having previously said that equipment from Chinese telecoms giant Huawei could be used in the UK's 5G telecommunications network, the government has now decided that, in fact, it won't be. And it's decided, though, on allowing quite a long period of time for the removal of some existing Huawei parts, and others will, in fact, remain in non-5G parts of the network. But there was that allegation from China that the UK has really changed its mind under pressure from the US, implying that Britain isn't in control of its own decisions. The UK previously decided there wasn't a security risk, and they thought it was okay for Huawei to be involved. So Mike Pompeo today was very clear in the press conference to say that this had been Britain's sovereign decision. And of course, the UK itself doesn't want to be seen as taking orders from the US on this matter or on others. But there are certainly pressures on the UK which may have caused it to change its mind, as well as a general shift in attitudes towards China across the whole world, not least because of the COVID-19 crisis and indeed what's going on in Hong Kong, as well as other geopolitical moves. But there will be those still continuing to question whether or not this truly was Britain's decision alone.
And on the point of Hong Kong, Jonathan, we know the UK decided to suspend its extradition treaty with Hong Kong. How aligned are the UK and the US on China at this point?
Well, the interesting thing about the press event after the discussions today between Pompeo and Dominic Raab, and indeed with Prime Minister Boris Johnson as well, was the clear difference in tone between the two men as they spoke. Dominic Raab speaking really quite diplomatically and rather briefly about what they'd covered, but Mike Pompeo was much more strident, speaking out very strongly against China, giving a clear, unambiguous message that he held China responsible first and foremost for the COVID-19 pandemic. He said it was avoidable. He also said that China had been trying to capitalize on that pandemic. He spoke out again about China's aggression in the South China Sea and with India. He really laid it all out as far as he was concerned and made it clear that that had been a fundamental part of those discussions that he'd had in the UK. And certainly that will have added some pressure on Britain, perhaps, to strengthen its position on China. Britain, of course, has indeed ended its extradition treaty with China regarding Hong Kong, and has also extended its arms embargo with Hong Kong, not just mainland China now as well. So these were things, obviously, that Mike Pompeo also praised. And Britain is clear that when it comes to Hong Kong, where it has a special responsibility, it is standing up, they say, against these actions of China in Hong Kong in particular.
Jonathan, before we address the trade agreement, let's take a listen to a brief soundbite from Pompeo earlier in London.
The CCP's exploitation of this disaster to further its own interests has been disgraceful. Rather than helping the world, General Secretary Xi has shown the world the party's true face. We talked about how we've seen Hong Kong's freedoms crushed. We've watched the CCP bully its neighbours, militarized features in the South China Sea, and instigate a deadly confrontation with India. I want to take this opportunity to congratulate the British government for its principled responses to these challenges.
Again, reiterating the strong stance on China, at least from the U.S. Jonathan, what about the trade agreement that two countries have been working on for quite some time? Was that discussed on that front?
Indeed it was, and that was a somewhat more easygoing part of the speeches, because both sides said they were keen for that trade agreement, that free trade agreement, to go ahead. Of course, Britain, as it has left the European Union now, is keen to negotiate that free trade agreement with America. Mike Pompeo saying that 2 rounds had been completed of discussions, the third to complete, and that he believed that they'd be able to come up with a deal very soon. But of course, imagining what is going on behind closed doors, there'll be some involvement from America in those discussions, putting pressure on Britain in terms of China generally, that may indeed be some sort of leverage when it comes to discussions of the free trade agreement that Britain desperately needs from America, perhaps more than the Americans need.